Has the US government blocked you from transferring money into your Mexican bank account? Perhaps Intercam? Well, let me give you some banking options for Mexico. I've made a couple videos over the last month regarding the sanctions the US Treasury has placed on 3 financial institutions in Mexico. I'm really hopeful that the sanctions are removed soon, but if you have an account with Intercam or Bank, then that doesn't help you now. At this point in time, it's probably a good idea to have 2 bank accounts in Mexico anyway, especially if you live here, have a business here, or own property here. You have a backup set of keys to your car, probably spare batteries for your TV remote, an extra charge cable for your phone. Why not a spare bank account? Over the past several weeks, I've talked to a half dozen banks trying to figure out how to set up another account for us. And Allie and I now have a second account in Mexico, as well as an online account with Wise, which is another option. Actually, if you're not a Mexican resident, then as far as I can tell, Wise is kind of your only option for banking in Mexico currently. Let me break it down for you. All banks are going to require that you provide your passport, temporary or permanent Mexican residency, a recent electricity bill, and your CURP number, which everyone with residency has. You also need a Mexican phone number. We have AT&T Mexico. Most people use Telmex or Telcel. And almost all banks require an RFC number because this ties your account to SAT, Mexico's version of the IRS or the Canada Revenue Agency. Mexico's SAT wants to know where the money flowing into your bank account originates from and whether or not you should be paying taxes on it. Hence, the banks want the RFC to share your bank account info with SAT. So my journey to open a bank account began. Banorte wouldn't let me in the front door. As I walked in, the woman stopped me like I was trying to rob the place. When I just told her I wanted to talk to someone about opening an account, she informed me that they don't do accounts for foreigners. Not sure if it's just me, just temporary as a result of these banking sanctions or what. But guess what, Banorte? I didn't want a stupid account in your stupid bank anyway. I talked to BBVA and they required the normal stuff, plus they wanted some other immigration document of which I had never heard and they couldn't explain it to me. Also, BBVA didn't seem super interested in helping this foreigner open an account. Inbursa Bank needed a state of account from my telephone company, and the local AT&T store where I set up my phone line didn't know what that was. We have our homeowners insurance through Inbursa, and I was communicating with my insurance lady. She sent me an example screenshot of what a state of account was, which meant nothing to the people at AT&T. At this point, I'm going crazy at the arbitrary requirements that these banks have for opening an account. Insurance lady in Bursa, she agrees with me. These are ridiculous, but she still can bypass these ridiculous requirements. By the time I got to Santander and Scotia Bank, I had enough documents to open an account, but between my conversations with both banks, I discovered that there was no way I was going to be allowed to open an account. When the immigration office here in Central, when they gave me my residency, they used my middle initial only. And my passport has my full middle name. So I may never be able to open another Mexican bank account. I spent an hour and a half at Scotia Bank before the bank agent realized that we had reached a dead end with no way around it. Painful. Also, it takes a couple hours minimum to open a bank account. The Scotia Bank agent suggested to me, you should just get a new passport because that's going to be easier than changing your residency card. Another reason that I hope this Intercam stuff gets sorted out ASAP, because I'm without bank in Mexico. Scotia Bank did seem to be the most willing to work with us. Like, they weren't throwing roadblocks left and right at us in an attempt to just get them to leave them alone, like Santander, BBVA, and Banorte did. So I sent Allie into Scotia Bank to open an account. She ran into a different roadblock. Last year, our accountant had told us that we should separate the revenue that we're getting for our properties, and that would help us tax-wise. Turns out it didn't really save us any money, and it was more of a hassle, as Allie had to connect her RFC with the SAT tax office and then file monthly taxes. So we decided any Mexican revenue would just flow through me, and we avoided that whole thing out. But the accountant didn't know or failed to tell us that if Allie opens a bank account at Scotia Bank or any other bank in Mexico, then she would have to file monthly taxes for as long as she has that bank account. Even if she doesn't have any Mexican revenue under her name, she'll have to pay an accountant to file monthly. Which brings us to HSBC. They allow residents to open an account with just your residency, your CURP, which, as I mentioned a minute ago, everyone with residency has, your passport, a Mexican phone number, a utility bill, and your social security number instead of your RFC. This still prevents me from opening an account, since my residency card and my passport don't match up perfectly, but it was enough for Allie to open an account. There's no monthly fee as long as you maintain 5,000 pesos in your account. There was a slight issue when Allie's phone couldn't receive the registration code text to finalize the process, but they did permit her to use my phone number to finalize the account. The other thing that HSBC told us, and we're pretty adamant about, was that if we send money to Intercam or we receive any money from Intercam, then it would cause them to cancel our account. I think all the banks are a little freaked out right now. Intercam is poison and nobody's touching them. They're built as a foreigner-friendly bank, and they are, but they're just rotting away and praying this thing gets resolved soon. It just sucks for everyone. The employees that work there, the account holders, and for the US-Mexico relationship. The other thing that you should do if you live in Mexico or own property in Mexico, as I mentioned earlier, is sign up for WISE. Any non-resident needs to open a WISE account today. I'll put a link in the notes so you can just click that and you can sign up. Only takes a few minutes. It's the best option. You can transfer money from WISE to your Mexican bank account if you have one, or you can make payments to other bank accounts in Mexico. For example, we can pay our HOA fee through WISE. For our condo, we can pay the pool guy or our accountant. Or we can transfer money now to the HSBC account and use that to make payments. You have to be a Mexican citizen to accept payments into your WISE account and pesos, but if somebody in the US or Canada has a WISE account, then they can send you dollars through WISE. If someone needed to transfer a payment to you in pesos, then you would still have to have a Mexican bank account. Also, WISE cannot send money to any of those sanctioned bank accounts or banks, including Intercam. I mentioned this last week, but it really seems like WISE is the best possible option to transfer funds from US or Canada into Mexico. Our US bank account, our bank, they charge $25 or $35 for an international wire transfer, but it's like $6 to transfer funds from US dollars to Mexican pesos through WISE. Plus, the money in your WISE account earns interest. You can order a debit card from WISE for $9, and they have a free digital card as well for credit card terminals with the tap option. That about covers it for what's going on in the soap opera world of Mexican banking. Hopefully the sanctions are lifted in a few weeks and you won't hear from me again on the fascinating topic of banking in Mexico. but this should help you cover your bases in the meantime. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you down here.